What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr War Games, and today I'm going to bring you a profile for Labyrinth. Now this is a little bit different to what I would usually bring you, because usually I'd probably bring you a physical deck. However, with the set of Tactical Masters, I haven't actually bought any of them, purely because I don't feel the decks are quite ready yet. However, I know that a lot of you are interested in different ways of building the deck, and you kind of want to know how they play. So I thought it'd be beneficial for me to bring you a demo deck list that you can kind of adapt and take yourself. And from what I've seen online, not a lot of profiles are actually going into depth of exactly what the cards do and how they operate. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe. If you get this video up to at least 50 likes, I will bring you another deck from Tactical Masters, whether that be Valiant or whether that be the Runics. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile. So we start off with the Ariana, the Labyrinth Servant. So just a quick one, the Ariana, the Ariane, the lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle, and the Welcome Labyrinth are the ultra rares in the set. So that's kind of what you're looking for as you go. Anyway, with Ariana, if it is normal or special, you get to add a Labyrinth card from your deck to the hand except itself. If another monster or monsters leaves the field by your normal trap effect, except during a damage state, you get to draw a card. Then you can apply this effect. From your hand, either special summon a fiend monster or set one spell or trap. You can only use the effect once per turn. Now, obviously, you're probably going to want to be setting a spell or trap. And what makes this kind of good is it does let you play around with back row hate a little bit. But you've also got to keep in mind as well that it's very rare you're going to be using that draw effect, because when you look at the trap cards, and this is what I've tried to build as much as possible, I've tried to put in trap cards that will make your opponent's monsters leave the field. So you look at stuff like Compulse, you look at stuff like Punishment, Ice Dragon Prison, Karma Cut. It's all designed to make your opponent's cards leave the field. Now, if it was like, if you activate a normal trap card, quite like Trap Tricks, then it would have been a lot better, because then you can start using stuff like D Barrier and everything else. So this one you play it free of, for the pure fact that it just has a general better effect than the other one, which is, of course, the sister or the counterpart of Ariane. So this one is you get to send a normal trap card from your hand or that is set on the field to the graveyard to special summon one level 4 or lower fiend monster from your deck in defense. So you can kind of see that you go with this one and then you can special summon this one and kind of work it around that way. The reason this one is at a lower effect is for the pure fact that you need to be sacking off a normal trap card. So you don't want to be burning through them, and until we get the new card Labyrinth setup, which lets you search out normal trap cards, you don't really want to be losing that, because at the end of the day, the normal trap card you're going to get from just generally having it is going to be better than the Labyrinth card you can search with the Ariana. So this one, again, you can send a normal trap card to special on a level 4 or lower fiend monster from your deck in defense. Yes, it can get you into a Lilith, and it can also get you into a Backjack. So you then get the abilities to link them off if you want to, and kind of move plays further forward that way. If another monster or monsters leaves the field by the normal trap card, or your normal trap card specifically, you get to draw a card and then apply the following effect. From your hand, either special summon a fiend monster or set a spell or trap. Keep in mind that you can set any spell or trap you want. The issue with this is it doesn't actually identify that you can activate that trap card this turn. If it did, it would probably be a lot better and give you a bit more use out of it. The same with the Ariana. But the fact is, this is just your general normal summon and, in theory, rota, and work it from that one. We've then got two of the Cuckoo Clock. So the Cuckoo Clock and the Stovey Trouble are rares. And basically they have really nice quick effects to discard it. And then you get to activate a normal trap card that was set this turn if you control a Labyrinth monster. So that's where it kind of combos off with the Ariane and the Ariana. But it's keeping in mind that you need to have this in the hand. You need to then discard it in order to trigger that effect to be allowed to use it. Which, unless you're drawing the trap card off of these two and you're like, oh, I really want to play that, or you draw this off of them, it's kind of a little bit restrictive. If a card of cards is sent from the hand to the graveyard to activate your normal trap card or your Labyrinth card or effect, except itself, while this card is in the graveyard, you get to add this card back to the hand or special summon it. You only use the effect once per turn. Now, the importance of this is, at the moment, the reason that that gets utilized a little bit more as well is you've got your Karma Cut, which is going to allow you to trigger that because you're going to be discarding a card in order to activate one of your effects. Now, I believe it is cost. So I believe it will still trigger the effect, but it basically lets you loop them around, which is why we're not playing this at free. Then with the stove, again, it's got the quick effect to send this card from the hand or field to the graveyard, to discard a card, to set a Labyrinth spell or trap from your hand or deck. If a monster or monsters leaves the field by your normal trap effect while this card is in the graveyard, you get to special summon it. You can only use the effect once per turn. So obviously this one doesn't recur itself back to the hand as much, and it is a bit more specific that you just need to set a Labyrinth spell or trap. And unfortunately, at the moment, your most disruptive Labyrinth spell or trap is the Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch, which isn't a Labyrinth spell or trap. Go figure. You can use the other Labyrinth cards, but the Labyrinth cards were all like, well, if your opponent attacks directly, or if your opponent attacks, and if when you activate a normal trap card, you can activate this card and it becomes that trap card's effect. Like, that's kind of cool, but when you look at these trap cards, the only one, like, double Ice Dragon Prison, pretty cool. Double Punishment, pretty cool. Double Karma Cut, kind of cool. And Double Compulse, kind of cool as well. But the fact that their when effects can be a little bit damaging. But if you do like that gimmick, you can, of course, play that card at 1 or 2. And I'll show you that. I'll show you that now, actually. So this is why we do it on this one. So that one is the Labyrinth Barrage. So when you activate a set normal trap card except itself, that effect or this effect becomes that normal trap's effect when this card is activated. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, after this card resolves, your opponent takes no effect damage from your cards, which is fine because you're not getting a lot of effect damage on board. But what it will do is it will allow you to pretty much double up the effect of Karma Cart, double up the Ice Dragon and Prism effect, because you can only activate one Ice Dragon Prism per turn. But with the Labyrinth Barrage, its effect becomes that. You're not activating a second Ice Dragon Prison. You just get to use a second effect of Ice Dragon Prison. So that's kind of like a cool little interaction, which might be worth doing, but it's quite specific in the way you have to set it up. Then we've got 2 lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. When we get the new boss monster in Darkwing Blast, you'll probably cut this down to 1. But for now, your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards, which is really important because it means they can't negate an Ice Dragon Prison, they can't negate a Karma Cut and everything like that. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You can take one normal trap card in your graveyard and set it to your field, but it cannot be activated unless you control a Fiend monster. If another monster or monsters leaves the field by your normal trap effect, you can destroy one card in your opponent's hand at random or their field. So this is really nice because then it means Compulse becomes a bounce and a pop. Whether that be on the field or the hand, is you can pop the card you bounce back is entirely, whatever one you want to choose. And then, of course, we're playing the triple Absolute King Backjack. I like this one. So during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you get to banish this card from the graveyard, excavate the top card of your deck, and if it is a normal trap card, set it on your field. Otherwise, send it to the graveyard. That set card can be activated during this turn. That is pretty much what the effects needed to be on these other Labyrinth monsters, because then it would have been really, really cool for them to have that gimmick, because you're already limited with the normal trap cards you have anyway. So it would have been nice to be able to just be able to activate them this turn without having to go through Cuckoo Clock or anything like that. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, place them in any order, and you can only use each effect once per turn. So that's how you can control the draws off the Ariana and the Ariane, and also how you can trigger the effect of Backjack whenever you see fit. So that's kind of a really cool and nice interaction. And the best thing about this is you can get this in the graveyard a couple of different ways. So you can get this in the graveyard by discarding it off of the stove. You can also get it into the graveyard. Probably the best way possible is off of the Karma Cut as well. We'll then move into Lilith, Lady of Lament. Now, keep in mind, you get to tribute a dark monster, which all of these monsters are. So if you're able to get this to the board, as it's been special summoned, I suppose, from your Ariane, it then gives you the ability, if you've normal summoned a Backjack or anything like that, where you can tribute that in theory. But the idea is you can then tribute off to reveal 3 normal trap cards, and your opponent randomly chooses one. So again, you can see that we've got 20 normal trap cards here that you're going to want to be adding to your hand. And work it from there. Triple Extrav. Now, this does clash with the extra deck, but the extra deck has been built to show you the options that you have with it. This is probably the better card for this type of deck because it has a lot of cards that, well, Welcome Labyrinth will lock you out of your extra deck, so will Punishment. So it's probably the best draw card for you. It does limit if you want to play Super Poly or something like that. You'd probably adapt Extrav for a different draw card. We're currently on 45 cards. That's purely because I put the Gamma package in at the last minute, and I'll explain that when we get to it. We've then got the one Labyrinth. If you activate a set Welcome Labyrinth normal trap card, annoyingly specifically this card, it should have just been like if you activate a Labyrinth normal trap card, you can add this additional effect to it. Also, after that, destroy one card on the field. If you activate a non-Labyrinth normal trap card, you get to special summon a Fiend monster from your hand or graveyard. So, yes, it dodges Ash. Yes, it will trigger these ones. But I feel that it could have been a lot better, which is why we're only playing one of it, because it's not something you need to massively rely on. Call by the Grave is pretty standard on this. We then look at Welcome to Labyrinth. So this is the other ultra rare. The artwork is really, really cool. I love how it's got the chandelier monster, which you also get in this set, but it's not as great in the artwork. So you special summon a Labyrinth monster from your deck, and then until the end of the next turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the deck or extra deck, except Fiend monsters. If a monster or monsters leaves, well, basically it says if a monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect, while this card is in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you get to set this card. You can only use each effect once per turn. So it's basically a special from the deck, and then it gives you a recurrence as well. Again, yes, it's great because it's a way of constantly being able to get your lovely Labyrinth from the deck. And she is very important to be able to protect your cards from being destroyed. And without that route of play, this one obviously only lets you get a level 4 or lower. And this one lets you get to add a Labyrinth card. So the idea is you're probably going to want to go to this to get to this, to then get to this. But again, a simple Ash on that completely stops it dead in its tracks, which can be really painful. Compulse, target a monster on the field, return it. Pretty standard on that one. Deck Devi can be Eradicator if you want. This is purely because I think right now, something like this can be very, very powerful. Now, the thing with this is it lets you tribute a dark monster with 2,000 or more attack. Look at your opponent's hand, all monsters they control, and all cards they draw until the end of their third turn after activation, and destroy all monsters with 15 or less attack. So it completely blows out sprites. It can hurt the tiers, but then they'll just start spinning them back into the deck. So it's something you might need to consider about the matchups. Again, we're at a 45 card deck, so you can easily side these out if you want to. It's just a nice normal trap card that does need to combo off with your lovely Labyrinth, but I believe it also triggers off of Lilith as well, because it will tribute the monster as cost, and then it checks the attack in the graveyard, and because Lilith's original attack is 2,000, it will actually be able to trigger the Deck Devi as well. Triple Punishment, this is probably a no-brainer. So, I mean, you're already restricting your extra deck. You might as well just not play with your extra deck on this particular route. So you get to target a face-on monster your opponent controls, send a monster with equal or higher attack from the extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that monster. It locks you out of the extra deck from the until the end of the next turn, which is absolutely fine. But when we get to the extra deck, you'll see all of the targets we have for this, and we have so many that will gain you so much more advantage going forward. You don't really mind about not having your extra deck. Then, of course, we've got double Ice Dragon Prison. So again, this can be a 3 of, it can be a 2 of. It's entirely up to you. We should all know what that does by now. And then Triple Karma card. So this is a card I haven't seen a lot of people play, but I think is really, really cool. So you discard one card, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Banish that target, then banish all cards with the same name as that monster from your opponent's graveyard. Now, not only will this help you trigger Backjack, but keep in mind, if you activate this on your opponent's Swap Frog, they lose all of their Swap Frogs. So they'll lose all the ones they put in their graveyard, they'll lose the one on the field. It can be very, very damaging. Not only will it be damaging against a card that can be multiply sent, but it can also damage any card in general if it's just a one of. So if you hit an elf and they try to trigger the elf to bring back from the graveyard, completely fine, they lose their elf anyway. You look at your tiers. You're banishing the tiers, you're not destroying them. So again, if they've got multiple Merrills in the graveyard that they have yet to spin back or anything like that, it does give you the ability that, for example, if they went normal summon Merrill, mill free, and they hit a Merrill, you can chain the Karma cut. So it would go chain link 1 as their turn player for the Merrill effect to put it back to the graveyard to fuse, and then you activate Karma cut to discard a card to target the Merrill on the board. You would then banish the Merrill on the board and the Merrill from the graveyard, meaning that their fusion effect will not resolve, which can be very, very powerful. And then, of course, we've got Triple Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch. Like, the fact that this is not a Labyrinth card bemuses me. If you control a Fiend monster, target one card on the field, destroy it, then you can send a Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. So again, the reason this works so well is this will let you send Backjack, and then Backjack can then be triggered to look at the top 3, banish and set and all of that stuff. Really cool card. Artwork's pretty decent as well, but it's like, bro, why is this not a Labyrinth card? It should, like, it didn't even need to be named a Labyrinth card. It could have been said that this card is always treated as a Labyrinth card. And then, of course, we've got triple gamma, 1 driver. The reason we've got this is because even if you can't get this to the board, it does give you the ability to protect all of these from being negated. And on top of that, if you've only got this card on the board and you activate this and your opponent ashes you, you can then gamma it, because it will, I believe, so I could be a little bit wrong, because it says after this card resolves. So technically it hasn't resolved yet. So you activate Gamma, you resolve the chain backwards. Gamma summons Driver, then you resolve your opponent's Ash, which gets negated and destroyed via Gamma, and then you resolve Labyrinth, summoning out, ideally, your lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. Yes, these will get banished and you won't be able to use them, even if you do this during your turn, but it still gives you the ability to protect from one of your biggest weaknesses. And then the final card is the Evil Twins, Kisakil and Leela. And the reason for this is off of punishment. If you need to get rid of a monster that is stronger than 3k or more, you have the perfect target. And then off the back of that as well, the target you send can also be used in the graveyard to send this, and then send a card your opponent controls on the field. Moving down to the extra deck, this is where Spice comes into play. Now, the DDD engine is absolutely amazing. I love this engine. So, you start off by making Triple D King, Wave King, Caesar, because it requires 2 level 4 Fiend monsters. You don't need to worry about its effect at all. It's basically like a Zeus climb. So when you make this, it has 2 materials. You then rank on top into Marksman King Tell. By doing so, King Tell now has 3 materials. You then rank on top of King Tell and go into your Triple D King, Divisor King, Deuce Mechana. By doing so, this guy now has 4 materials. For those of you that do not know, if you haven't played DDDs, it has a very nice monster effect. So, you can also XYZ summon this card by using a Triple D monster you control as material. Transfer its materials to this card. You can only control 1 Triple D Divisor King Machina once per turn. Once per chain, when a monster card your opponent controls activates its effects, quick effect, you can either detach 2 materials from this card or destroy a Dark Contract card you control, which you won't have. Attach that opponent's card to this card as material. Once per turn during the standby phase, you can place this card into your Pendulum Zone. Now, obviously, you're not going to put it into your Pendulum Zone, but you're going to have 4 materials, which means twice in one turn you can steal. Keeping in mind as well that once you've stolen, you can actually steal again for a 3rd time, because you would have taken 2 of your opponent's monsters. So this card is basically going to be 3 forms of interruption, and all the only way you make it is by overlaying these 2 here, which is very, very cool, very, very interesting, and I just love the tech. I thought it was a nice little option, because then it gives you the ability of triggering this effect, to send a normal trap card to special summon it, to special this card from the deck, to search you out a Labyrinth card, which could be Welcome Labyrinth, to then overlay both of those into your Double King, Wave King Caesar, to then go into King Tell, and this one specifically says you can also XYZ this card using a rank 4 Triple D, and XYZ materials attached to that monster become XYZ materials on this card. So it confirms that all of the materials are transferred across up to your big ass Divisor King. Then, of course, for your targets off of punishment, you've got Elder Entity Ints. You've got Double Winged Pegasus. You've got the 1 Omega. So whether you're actually going to activate this or make this or not, it does give you that ability that you can return this card and 1 card in your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard back to the decks. So it gives you a constant loop for your punishment, and it also gives you a target for Synchro decks. And then, of course, you have the very spicy, very powerful Evil Twin Trouble Sunny. So this one being 3,300 can be very, very important if your opponent has a stronger monster on the board. I mean, just think of something like Blue Eyes White Dragon. Anything of your previous things, and the Tis or anything like that, isn't going to be able to deal with it. Off the back of that as well, is you can banish this card from the graveyard to send an Evil Twin monster from your hand, deck, or face-up field to the graveyard, to send 1 card on the field to the graveyard, which is nice on this one here. So it does kind of put your opponent in a position where they know as soon as that hits the graveyard, or if they're not even expecting it, you're going to get 2 forms of removal from 1 card in the form of punishment. So really, really cool. You can do it with Natis as well, but sometimes stuff doesn't want to be destroyed, doesn't want to be targeted, so you get the ability to send instead. 1 Zeus. So worst case scenario, if you have absolutely battered through, you've gone through Wave King into Markman into this, and you go, you know what, I'm just going to attack with this and then go into Zeus. It's like, well, I've got a fat Zeus. And then you can hold back all of your cards as much as you wish. The 1 Beat Cop, as it is a Fiend, it can also protect your monsters and your cards on the field as well. The 1 Unicorn Fiend, I went with the Unchained Abomination. It's not something you have to go for, but again, it's because it's a Fiend, it's a Link 4, it requires 2 monsters including a Link monster, and then it gives you the ability to start popping cards in the end phase and everything else. And then the 1 Link Karibo and the 1 Relinquish Anima. Obviously, these are for backjack. So you normal summon backjack, turn it into a defensive Link Karibo or an offensive Relinquish Anima. And that will then give you a play to either steal a monster or protect from a form of battle. You need to be careful because you will be locked into Fiends if you have activated the Welcome Labyrinth. But it's just a couple of options to play around with. You do have other alternatives, like if you wanted to go Super Poly route, you've also got the Garura play, so you can send that to draw a card, but it's only 1500 attack, so the target you're going to be using your punishment on may not be as effective as you might want it to be, but it does give you a couple of options and a couple of routes there too. Anyway, that is it for the profile. I hope this is kind of giving you an insight into what the deck looks like, all the different options you can play. This is pretty much as max control as you kind of want to be looking for. And you can adapt it as and when you see fit. In regards to the other cards that you get in the set as well, you do get the Chandelier, but it's not as effective. You also get the Fair Welcome Labyrinth. So when a monster declares an attack while you control a Fiend monster, target one card in the field, negate an attack, and if you do, destroy that target. I mean, you might as well be playing like a Mirror Force or something instead. So these are just kind of your options. This is the brand new one that we get in Darkwing Blast, Lady of the Labyrinth. So while you control a set card, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If a Labyrinth card effect, except Lady of the Labyrinth or a normal trap card was activated this turn, quick effect, you get to special summon this card from the hand. So that is when you're going to start bringing in the Shade Brigandine, because it's a normal trap card you can activate, and then that's how you can get into stuff like Time Thief Reader to provide another form of interruption as well. The other card that we're waiting on that I think is pretty cool is the Labyrinth setup. I'm not too sure if this actually came in the Tactical Masters. I'm pretty sure it comes in the next set, Darkwing Blast. But you get to target 2 of your Labyrinth spells and traps that are banished or in the graveyard, except itself, shuffle them into the deck, and then if you control Fiend Monster, you can set non-Labyrinth normal traps with different names directly from your deck equal to the number shuffled. So, I mean, at the moment in this one, we've only got 2 Labyrinth spells or traps, and this one recycles itself anyway. So, again, this is why this is so important. Of this not being a Labyrinth can really, really hurt the deck. Anyway, that is everything. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do want to see a Valiant profile or you want to see a Runic profile, then please make sure you smash that like button and get it to above 50 likes, and I will be more than happy to bring that for you. Anyway, as absolutely always, guys, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.